I never thought my father's secret would open the door to life-changing opportunities. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The moment I discovered what lay hidden beneath our home, my heart raced and my palms went clammy. Everything familiar twisted into something that felt alien, eerie. A dusty, cobweb-laden box lay tucked away in the deepest corner of the basement, untouched for decades. My father had never spoken of it. With trembling hands, I pried it open, the rusted latch resisting before finally yielding. A musty smell wafted up, and inside, glinted a slew of photograph stacks of them. Faces I didn't recognize stared back at me, eyes filled with secrets. The shadows in their smiles made my stomach churn. I sifted through the photos frantically, my heart thumping, unsure of what I would find. There was one of my father, young and vibrant, laughing with a woman I didn't know. She was beautiful in a haunting way, her presence radiating a sense of danger. As I turned the last photo over, a slip of paper fluttered out. I caught it, submerged in confusion and a rush of urgency. The writing was scrawled, frantic. "The truth lies in the silence." My breath hitched. What did that mean? I glanced back at the stairs leading to the sunlight, the warmth, the normalcy of the world above. My hands shook more now. I wanted to run, to escape, but I felt tethered to the mystery. Had my father lived a double life? Was our family a facade? The walls seemed to close in, shrouding me in anxiety. Each breath felt heavy. And then I remembered the whispers, those hushed conversations that would halt the moment I entered a room. My mother's glaring silence when I asked about the family history. I recalled her face, tight with worry each time my father's name came up in conversation. This wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was a thread unraveling, exposing everything. The weight of unanswerable questions pressed against my chest. I felt trapped, as if the truth had its talons dug deep into my skin, refusing to let go. With desperation flooding my heart, I realized I had to know. What lies hidden in the shadows of my family? Was I prepared for what I might uncover? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I stood in that dimly lit basement, the musty air thick with the remnants of forgotten memories, my heart racing as I succumbed to the weight of unknown truths. The box had unveiled a portal to a past I had never known, one that threatened to shatter the fragile illusion of my family's existence. As I stepped back, the shadows of the basement seemed to creep closer, wrapping around me like an unwanted embrace, and I shuddered at the thought of what lay ahead. I felt a thin flicker of rebellion igniting deep within me, pushing away the fear. I had to understand. That cryptic message, "The truth lies in the silence," echoed in my mind, urging me to delve deeper. I glanced around, wondering what else this place might hold. The walls felt like they were breathing, whispering secrets I longed to unveil. In a moment of resolve, I grabbed the box and shuffled toward the staircase, bracing myself for the blinding light of day. I needed to bring the contents upstairs, to my roomy sanctuary where I could piece together this haunting puzzle in solitude. Once inside, I dumped the contents of the box onto my bed, the photographs scattered like fallen leaves, each one beckoning me to decipher its tale. I recognized only one face among the strangers, the beautiful woman beside my father. Her expression, alive with mischief, seemed to taunt me with silent answers. I flipped over the photograph to catch her name, but on the back, there was only a day significant in history but foreign to me, shrouded in mystery. As I navigated through the collection, I sensed anxiety weaving into my thoughts. They were ordinary images, yet they felt weighted with deeper implications: a birthday party, a picnic in the park, the joyous faces of children I didn't know. They all had one thing in common: they whispered of an alternate life, a hidden reality that lay beyond the surface of my memories. The afternoon sun streamed through my bedroom window, illuminating the photographs and casting long shadows on the walls. But even the brightness did little to banish the encroaching darkness inside me. My mind raced with unanswered questions. What had my parents done to conceal this past? And why had silence become the preferred method of communication in our home? Just then, my phone buzzed, jolting me from my spiraling thoughts. It was a message from Mason, my childhood friend, who lived just down the street. "Hey! Wanna hang out? I could use a break from studying." A momentary smile crossed my lips. Mason always had a way of lightening the weight of the world. I considered his invitation maybe a brief escape would clear my mind before diving back into this labyrinth of secrets. "Sure, I'll be there in a bit," I replied, hastily pushing the photos back into the box and masking the turmoil brewing within. 30 minutes later, I found myself on the familiar path toward Mason's house, the air crisp with autumn's breath. As I approached, his laughter reached me before the front door even opened. It was a comfort I hadn't realized I'd missed. Mason greeted me with a broad grin, his warm presence instantly welcoming. "Hey! You seem a little off. Everything okay?" I hesitated, my instincts nudging me to confide in him, to unburden my mind. But I quickly waved it away. "Just a lot on my plate." His gaze sharpened but softened at the edges. "You know you can talk to me if you need to, right?" A small gesture of kindness, yet I held back the floodgates of my heart. I wasn't ready to share the chaos swirling within. Instead, we fell into the ease of camaraderie, moving outside to shoot hoops in his driveway. Laughter bubbled between us as we let the games distract us, easing the tightness in my chest. As dusk fell, an unexpected knock resonated from the front door, pulling our attention. Mason glanced toward me, puzzled. Who could that be? Before I could answer, Mason's mother opened the door, her expression transforming from curiosity to concern in a split second. "Is this your daughter?" A woman stood there, one I recognized from the photographs. Her striking beauty remained, but time had transformed it into a hard edge. My body froze as she locked eyes with me, a jolt of recognition mingled with horror gripping my heart. "You've grown up," she breathed, her voice faint yet tinted with urgency. "We need to talk. There's so much I have to tell you." In that moment, all the laughter and camaraderie faded, replaced by an icy dread. The shadows of my father's secret threatened to spill into the light, and I was poised at the edge of an emotional precipice, teetering dangerously between understanding and denial. I stood stunned, the weight of the world crashing down around me as the woman in the doorway, my potential truth wrapped in a shroud of uncertainty, stepped closer. Mason's eyes darted between us, confusion evident on his face. I felt the ground beneath me shift as if I were suddenly caught in a tide of emotions I wasn't prepared to navigate. "Who are you?" My voice trembled, its softness betraying the tempest within me. I clutched tightly to my resolve, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm in my chest. "I am Lisa," she replied, her voice a melody of urgency and regret. "Your mother. I am here because we need to discuss your father." My instinct screamed at me to turn and run, but I stood rooted in place, my mind whirling. Memories of the photographs swirled before me like phantoms, and the implications they carried became more surreal. "Why now?" I demanded, struggling to keep the fear from leaking into my tone. "Because you deserve to know the truth," she said, her eyes glistening like pools of hurt. "And because I've made mistakes." That she faltered, the weight of her own words crashing into her. "That have consequences for both of us, Mom," Mason's mother exclaimed, her voice cutting through the tension as she rushed to step between us. "Perhaps you should come in for a moment. Let's talk rather than escalate this." Lisa paused, glancing behind her as if the shadows my past were close on her heels, then stepped tentatively into the house. I followed, my heart a drumbeat of dread, curiosity, and an inexplicable tug of connection. Mason moved aside, his expression a mixture of concern and bewilderment. In the living room, as Lisa took a seat, I could almost see time folding back on itself, reshaping our lives with every unspoken story she held. I could feel Mason's questioning gaze fixed on me, compiling his own theories of what this shocking revelation meant for both of us. Where do I start? Lisa murmured, her fingers nervously tracing the armrest. I was someone who lived in a fragile existence, and I imperfectly fit the pieces together just like your father. I left, thinking it would protect you. But I underestimated how much you would need to understand. The words wrapped around my heart, squeezing the air from my lungs. My father? What did he hide? The question burst from me like a raw wound, the urgency spilling forth in a desperate plea for clarity amidst the chaos. That I can't tell you everything yet, she replied, a deep breath escaping her lips as though it was a revelation unto itself. But the truth is, he sacrificed so much for you. There were secrets, connections to a life that was different. I interrupted, every syllable laced with frustration and longing for answers. The turmoil of emotions swirled as I cast a glance at Mason, begging for his understanding, ricocheting between wanting to hear the truth and the fear of what it might unveil. Yes, Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper. Different. More complicated. Your father, he was not just a simple man living a simple life. He had a past that intersected with danger, people, and choices he wanted to keep away from you. Each word seemed to unravel the fabric of my reality, stitching together a profound sorrow woven in silence within my family. And you? I pressed, my voice trembling, suddenly wary of her involvement. What role did you play in this danger? I made choices based on fear, Lisa said, her eyes heavy with a past that wouldn't let her go. And I left with the belief that it was the best thing for you. But I never stopped caring. I just thought I was protecting you from the mess I created. Mason's eyes darted between us, his normally bright and supportive expression clouded by the gravity of the revelation unfolding before him. It should have been a relief, learning that there was more at play behind the construction of my life, but instead, it felt like a knife twist deeper, rupturing the very essence of my childhood. Don't you see? Lisa continued, desperation clinging to her words. The truth lies in the silence because it's the hardest to unveil. I've come to warn you of what's still out there. Waiting before she could elaborate, the doorbell rang again, sharp and jolting, fracturing the thick tension in the room. All our heads turned toward the sound, my heart racing with anxiety. The tone was foreign, insistent yet oddly foreboding. Maybe it's just someone trying to sell something, Mason's mother said, shooting an uneasy glance at the door. I'll check. As she moved to answer, a sinister dread washed over me, my instinct flaring with a premonition. What if the truth was not just locked within the bonds of our family but out there, lurking in the shadows, threatening to consume everything we held dear? Lisa, I said urgently, my voice low but firm, if there's more to this, I need to know now. Before it's too late. But before she could respond, Mason's mother opened the door, and shock splintered the air like a crack of thunder. Standing on the porch was a figure I had never expected to see, a man who carried the weight of mystery and danger with every bruised shade of his expression. My father's past loomed larger than I could have ever fathomed, and suddenly, once again, I found myself teetering on the edge of my reality, drawing closer to the precipice of fate. The man at the door appeared to be carved from shadows, his presence suffocating the space around us as if he had stepped from a moment frozen in time. He wore a leather jacket that looked like it had been weathered through all the storms of life, and the intensity of his gaze pierced through me, marking me as a target in a game I didn't even know I was playing. Frozen in place, I felt Mason's tense energy beside me, his body taut as he processed the scene, the door ajar, the unease in the air thickening by the second. Who are you? He demanded, stepping slightly in front of me as if to shield me from the encroaching gloom. But I could feel the cold dread icy and visceral in my veins. Everyone's eyes were on the man, and the walls of my world began to cave inward. I am here for Lisa, the man stated simply, though the rumble of his voice was anything but casual. There was a desperation to it, a longing buried deep under layers of bravado. He's here for me, too, Lisa murmured, her voice shaky but firm, almost a whisper as she took a cautious step forward. The recognition in her eyes cut through the veneer of fear that clung to me. David, why are you here? things have escalated," he replied, his tone more grave than I could comprehend. "Your past has caught up with us, and we don't have time to waste. My heart raced. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice edged with panic. "What does it have to do with me?" David's gaze focused on me then, and in that piercing look, I caught a glimpse of urgency mixed with a protective instinct. "You're not safe. They know you're here. We have to move now." Mason's mother stared between them as if enchanted by an unseen spellstone, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to catch up to the unfolding revelation. "What are you talking about?" "Who knows what?" The tension coiled tighter around us, and I instinctively felt for Mason's hand. It was warm and steady, a beacon amid the swirling uncertainty. But there was no escaping the dread that sat heavily within me. My father's life, whatever it had truly been, was something I had only begun to scratch the surface of. "Keep her close, Mason," Lisa commanded with a sudden fierceness, grounding both fears and ties to her son. "You have to protect her. This is about her father's unfinished business." That I wanted to scream at her, to demand how this was my reality. How could I be thrust into a world of shadows I never chose? But before I could voice my questions, the atmosphere shifted again, heavy with the hindsight of decisions made long before I was born. "David, you shouldn't have come here," Lisa hissed. "You're putting all of us at risk." "I needed to be sure you were safe," he said, almost defensively. "We've run out of time, they'll be here any minute." The weight of each tick of the clock filled the silence, pressing down harder than the fear in my heart. "Who's coming?" I whispered, barely holding on to the fragments of my composure as my imagination spiraled into chaotic horrors. "Enemies from your father's past," he said, his eyes darting toward the window as if he could sense something invisible lurking out there. "He took something from Thema life, a promise. I don't know, but they're looking for retaliation. And you're the loose thread in this whole tapestry of lies. Everything I believed, it's all crumbling." I dared to look back at Lisa, searching for guidance, but the uncertainty written across her face mirrored my own. "What do we do? First, we get out of here. Do you have a back exit?" Mason grasped my hand tighter, resolute in the face of growing dread. "There's a door to the kitchen," his mother stammered, her voice a wavering ember amidst the chaos. "But the alley's narrow, you might not make it without being seen." Before I could register what she was suggesting, Mason pulled me toward the back of the house, but not without a glance back at David. "We won't leave you," he urged, but uncertainty cast shadows across his features. "Go," David replied, his expression hardening. "It'll draw their attention." "Just go." I felt paralyzed, like time had conspired against me. Despite my instincts screaming to stay and find the answers, I knew we had no choice. With a mixture of numbness and adrenaline-fueled dread, I followed Mason into the kitchen, heart pounding. As we slipped through the door, I stole one last fleeting glance at Lisa, the fear reflected in her eyes clashing with a glimmer of something else: determination, maybe love, or a fierce need to protect. And yet, it cut deeper, an odd sense of loss clawing at me, as if I were already saying goodbye to a life I had yet to fully understand. Out in the alley, the night swallowed us whole, shadows gripping the edges of my vision as we fled. The world outside felt foreign and threatening, an echo of fears I hadn't even known existed. But just as we reached the other side of the alley, the shrill scream of a siren pierced the night, punctuating the moment with a chilling truth: I had stepped into a reality built on secrets, and there was no turning back. In that instant, my heart sank deeper, caught in a tempest of dread that promised the worst was yet to come. Everything was unraveling, and so help me, the truth was laying bare, threading its way into the fabric of our lives in a way I had never anticipated. The cold air bit at my skin, drawing sharp breaths from my lungs as Mason and I darted out from the alley into the surrounding street. The flashing lights of the police car sent red and blue reflections dancing along the brick buildings, a dizzying display that set my heart racing. I stumbled over the uneven pavement, Mason's grip on my hand anchoring me. We were running, but there was nowhere to go. My mind was a frantic spiral of possibilities, consequences, and unanswered questions. Where do we go? I asked, my voice a strained whisper, the weight of my reality feeling like a shroud around me. Mason, what's happening? Why is any of this happening? Mason squeezed my hand tighter, his expression torn between resolve and panic. I don't know, but we can't let them find us. His eyes darted up and down the street, seeking a shelter we could slip into, a sanctuary from the chaos unfolding behind us, but as I glanced back toward the alley where we had just escaped, a figure emerged, David, silhouetted against the harsh lights from the police car. My heart lodged in my throat as I watched him move with purpose, shouting into the darkness, drawing the attention of the approaching threat. "Run!" I heard him yell, urgency electrifying his voice. "Get her out of here!" I wanted to scream back at him to come with us, but the sound caught in my throat. The fear etched on Mason's face compelled me to stay focused on escaping rather than shouting futile hopes into the void. With a heavy heart, I turned back and pressed into the depths of the night, adrenaline pushing me forward. As we rounded the corner, I could hear sirens wailing closer now, intertwining with David's distant voice, sharpening my fears. "I can't," I panted. "I can't leave him alone." Mason paused, dropping my hand just long enough to pull me close. His breath ghosted on my cheek, and I could see the struggle etched in his features. "We have to, Lena. The most important thing is you. Your mom, she needs you, and David sacrificed himself for you to have that chance." The bitter reality of his words cut deeper than any knife. I understood, yet the visceral feeling of abandonment churned heavily in my stomach, gathering the fragments of my resolve. I nodded, albeit reluctantly. I didn't want to believe any of this was our new reality, but I felt the weight of the responsibility pressing down on me. "Where now?" I demanded softly, apart from the noise of the world crumbling behind us. "Back to my house." "Well, figure something out there." Mason led the way back toward the familiar streets, but his bravado faltered when we turned the last corner into his neighborhood. The once glimmering streetlights now loomed like sentinels over our heads, dim and foreboding as they cast shadows that shivered, alive with unspoken fears. What if they follow us? I hesitated, panic tightening my grip on Mason's arm. "Then we'll deal with it," he said with a determination that was grounding amid my spiraling uncertainties. We slipped into the backyard of his home, hiding in the shadows of the garden. The usually serene landscape now felt hostile, the chirping of the night insects now a backdrop to our muted heartbeat. Peering through the window, I could see his mother pacing back and forth inside, her gestures frantic, the way she pressed her fingers against her mouth betraying her anxiety. Somewhere deep inside, I felt a pang of empathy for the woman, having just witnessed the horror we had escaped. "Stay quiet," Mason instructed as we crept toward the back door. I nodded, the tension flaring again in my veins. There was no escaping the urgency that loomed over us, even as we slipped through the back entrance undetected. Once inside, Mason's mother rushed toward us, relief flooding her features, but it was shadowed by her doubts. What are we going to do?" Her voice trembled, lacking the authority she usually commanded. "David is trying to hold them off," I said, almost in disbelief. "I don't even know who they are, or why they're after me." "Remember," Mason said, his brow furrowed in concentration, "you are not alone in this. Well, figure it out together." Despite the certainty in his voice, I could sense his own vulnerability mirrored beneath the surface, but it was then that I felt an unease that settled deep in my chest, multiplying as a realization struck me. David hadn't just abandoned his identity in that alley, he had stepped back into a world I knew nothing about. And somewhere in that world lay the pieces of my father's past, a past that now seemed inexplicably intertwined with my very existence. "That I have to find out," I said quietly, almost to myself, my voice trembling with an emotion I couldn't articulate. "I have to understand what he did, the threat he left behind. If they're really after me, I need to know why. Those words hung heavily in the stillness of the night. A deafening crash erupted from outside, making us all freeze, shattered glass tumbling like shards of the reality I thought I knew. My heart stopped. "What's happening?" Mason's mother gasped, eyes wide with terror. Before I could answer, the front door splintered open, revealing the man from earlier, shadows etched starkly across his stern features. Behind him, others poured in, their intentions unclear, urgency hanging thick in the air. They were there for me, for my father's unfinished business, and suddenly, it all felt too real. And in that moment, amid the chaos, it struck me like a bolt of lightning: what if the only way to uncover the truth was to confront the very shadows that haunted us? "What do you want?" I asked, my voice rising, the fear igniting a fire within me. But just as I readied myself for the confrontation, the leader of the group stepped forward, his eyes locking onto mine with a chilling familiarity. "Lena," he said, his voice slipping through, feeling both like a promise and a threat. "It's time for you to come home." The world around me closed in, the weight of their revelations pressing ever heavier. In that moment, I realized there was no escaping the darkness that my father had left behind, and the choices I had to make would change everything forever. The air thickened with tension, and it felt like the world outside Mason's house had vanished, leaving only the haunting echo of the man's words. Home. It was a word full of meaning, an idea of safety, of love, of a place where one truly belonged. But in that moment, it felt devoid of comfort. Instead, it thrummed with the unshakable knowledge that my father's secret was indeed tangled with a darkness that loomed closer than I had ever imagined. Mason moved instinctively, positioning himself between me and the intruders, his presence a barricade against the looming threat. "You need to leave," he demanded, his voice steady but layered with a tremor of uncertainty. His mother stood frozen beside us, eyes darting between the intruders and the weaponless kitchen that served as our only refuge. The man's gaze never faltered, though. It held a steady confidence that sparked a primal fear deep within me. "You think you can protect her," he said, his voice smooth like a silken thread weaving a haunting melody through the chaos. "This isn't just your fight, Mason. She has a role to play, one that you don't yet understand." Every word felt like a knife twisting deeper into my gut, forcing me to question everything I believed about my father and, ultimately, myself. "What do you mean? What role?" I demanded, my voice barely disguising the tremor coursing through me. I needed answers, to quell the storm in my heart, and perhaps to make sense of the fear swelling within Mason and his mother. The man stepped forward into the dim light of the kitchen, revealing each sharp corner of his face, casting shadows that morphed under the flickering light. "Your father was a man of power, Lena. A man who made choices that resonate even now. Those choices have consequences. And you." He glanced at me with an unsettling mix of eagerness and pity. "You are at the heart of it. Stop. Just stop." I burst out, shaking my head at the implosion of confusion within me. "You don't know me. You don't know what my life has been like. Just because he's my father doesn't mean I want anything to do with what he left behind." But the man's dark eyes, swirling with secrets, softened for a brief moment, almost as if he was breaking free from his own icebound fortress and letting a glimpse of humanity through. "You're more like him than you realize," he said quietly, his calm demeanor catching me off guard, startling me from my fiery defiance. "Your father saw potential in you, a light that he wanted to protect, but darkness finds its way into every corner and it doesn't play by the rules." "Enough!" Mason's mother shouted, breaking the thrall that held us captive. "You'll not take another step into this home. We will protect her, no matter what it takes." But something flickered in the man's eyes, a knowing confidence that sent chills down my spine. "We aren't here to harm you, but to guide you. You will find that truth can be more dangerous than lies. And they are coming for you, Lena, harder than they did for your father." Fear clawed at me, the burden of truth tugging at my heartstrings. "Who are they?" I wanted to know, my desperation almost palpable. "Who wants me?" "Sit tight," he replied, grinning broadly yet cruelly. "Soon, you'll find out. Whether you want to or not." Mason's hand tightened around mine as the unease in the room escalated, a palpable force threatening to break across us and drag us all into the tempest. "We don't trust you," he said firmly, determination radiating from his presence. "You may know things, but that doesn't grant you our allegiance. Trust is seldom given, most often, it is earned, and in time," the leader said, his tone now ominously placid, "you may find that your very survival depends on it. Seek the truth, find your father's allies, and ultimately, you'll have to make a choice. His past does not define you, but it certainly shapes your future." As he spoke, a shift penetrated the air, a change that I could feel in the depths of my bones. A flicker of recognition, of understanding, ignited within me, despite the suffocating fear trying to drown any hope. But before I could grasp the enormity of his words, a loud crash broke through the gathering storm of our conversation. The back door flew open, bars of light from the outside welcoming chaos into our small sanctuary. Figures surged in, shadows against shadows, spilling like spilled ink against the floor. Lena. The voice rose above the fray, desperate and full of anguish. A familiar one. David stood there, adrenaline coursing through him as he fought against a wave of figures trying to get inside. "Are you okay?" he exclaimed, eyes scanning the room, landing on mine with a fire that defied the darkness rushing in. His cue was like a signal that snapped something primal within me into motion. "Get back!" I shouted, fear driving the urgency in my voice as waves of adrenaline threatened to shatter my resolve. I tugged Mason, pulling him and his mother behind David, who stood ready as a shield against the oncoming storm. In that moment, it became painfully clear, I could no longer stay sheltered in the shadows of my father's past. I had to confront this tangled web of hidden truths, and though I didn't know if I was ready for the path that lay ahead, I felt a surge of determination swell inside me. "David, we have to," I began, but before I could finish, the invaders pushed through, drowning my words in chaos, and as I struggled to keep my footing on the shifting ground of my fractured life, a revelation struck like lightning. Mason was not just my ally, he was my heart. And David was more than a protector, he carried the weight of my father's legacy too. Both of them stood beside me, ready to fight the darkness that encircled us, but was I prepared to step into that light? Just as I began to formulate my response, an unexpected shout rang out in the chaos. One of the intruders turned toward the man leading them and declared, "We found her. We found her." My heart froze, every ounce of courage wavering as the implications sank in, spinning my world even deeper into the unknown. There was so much I still didn't understand, and yet time was rushing against us, pulling tighter the threads of fate that had begun to intertwine painfully into our lives. That I was being hunted, and in that tumultuous clash between worlds, I realized, to survive the storm would mean venturing into the very heart of my father's mysteries. And perhaps, just perhaps, I could emerge on the other side not only as his daughter but as something entirely my own. The chaos escalated, shadows morphing into chaos as the intruders flooded into the kitchen, faces obscured by masks and eyes intent on purpose. Mason instinctively stepped in front of me, his shoulder brushing mine, a silent promise that he would stand firm against the avalanche of uncertainty rushing toward us. The leader of the group held his ground at the threshold, a stillness radiating from him as if he thrived on the turmoil. "You don't understand the gravity of your situation, Lena," he shouted over the clamor, urgency sparking in his voice. "You may think you're running away from your father's legacy, but it's here with you like an unshakable shadow." Desperation danced in the frantic movements of the intruders as they found footing in Mason's home, sending chairs crashing to the ground and sending a cacophony of dishes splintering across the floor. My heart raced uncontrollably, frantically scanning the scene for an exit, a way to escape the mounting pressure. "Hold on!" David yelled, his voice slicing through the noise as he shoved Mason's mother behind him, guarding her from the rush of bodies. "Well, push them back." He moved with a fiery determination, each shove and swing a testament to the urgency of the moment, but there was an underlying sense of fear in his eyes. "Lena." Mason's voice found mine through the chaos. "We have to go. There's a way through the back." Panic surged within me as I caught just a glimpse of the world beyond the kitchen, thick, shadowy figures harrowing our direction. Fear gripped my heart like a vice. "But what if they catch us?" Again, that flicker of a reassuring smile played on Mason's lips, though it was laced with the uncertainty that draped over us all. "Well, figure this out. Together. We always do." Just then, I caught one of the intruders locking eyes with me, his gaze unexpectedly calm amidst the storm, as though he saw something within me that others did not. His mask slid down to reveal a face familiar from forgotten memories, an old family friend, or perhaps a distant ally. "Lena," he shouted, the name tumbling from his lips holding both urgency and resignation. "You need to embrace this. You need to unlock what you've inherited." "Unlock?" I echoed, my mind racing back to the cryptic words of the man earlier. What did it mean? The fray erupted around us, shoving me to the side as Mason and David forged an uneasy line of defense. Each movement felt choreographed by desperation, the weight of expectations mingling in a dance of chaos. And amidst it all, the doubts clung to my thoughts like shadows refusing to dissipate. "Get out of here!" Mason shouted, his voice powerful, commanding, and filled with an intensity one hadn't heard before. "Go!" "Well, hold them off." The tremor in his voice sent ripples through me, but deep down lay a growing realization that I couldn't abandon them. I couldn't leave them to face this storm alone, no matter how quickly fear tempted me to run. A memory flickered to life in my mind, something my father had whispered long ago, a lesson wrapped in riddles. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's pressing forward in spite of it. Gathering every ounce of resolve, I took a step closer, forcing myself into the chaos surrounding us, shouting, "David!" He looked back, startled by my sudden shift. "Whatever happens, I won't abandon you," I declared, my heart pounding, not knowing where the words came from or the impact they would have. His expression shifted, recognition flaring in his eyes. "Lena, no." But it was too late. The decision had been made. My feet began inching toward the very heart of danger, propelled by an instinct deeper than fear. In that moment, I felt the world around us fluctuate. Cutting through the noise was another voice, this one weaving through the chaos with a haunting melody that seemed to beckon the distant echoes of my father's legacy. "Lena, choose the path of light. Trust in your gift." As if spurred by an unseen force, the words suddenly ignited something within. An electric pulse surged through me. I felt the presence of that familiar warmth, swirling around me, igniting memories I thought were lost. It created ripples in my surroundings, drawing the attention of the encroaching figures. Uncertainty wrapped around me like a shadow, but at that moment, I felt the stirring of hope, of belief in what I could become when I allowed myself to stand rooted among those I cared for. "Listen!" I called out, my voice slicing through the chaotic symphony of conflict. "I don't know who you think I am, but I refuse to be a pawn in anyone's game. I want my father's truth, not his chains." An ominous stillness filled the kitchen for a brief heartbeat, as if reality hesitated, waiting to see how the pieces would fall before resuming its relentless march. In the quiet, the leader stepped back, a curious expression transforming his hardened features. "Then you have made your choice, Lena. The truth will come for you, but it won't be gentle. The road will be long and fraught with peril. Are you ready to face the consequences?" Before I could answer, the sound of shattering glass erupted from behind, a window giving way to rigid silhouettes, urging us into motion. David, sensing the urgency, grabbed my hand, and we propelled toward the back door, Mason staying close but glancing back over his shoulder, a mixture of determination and deep-seated fear clashing within him. But as we dashed through the door, something unexpected happened. The intruder I had recognized earlier stepped forward, his voice cutting through the air with a gravitas that stunned us into momentary stillness. "Lena!" he yelled, his tone a blend of fear and urgency. "You must remember the cipher. It's your key." Before I could respond, he was engulfed by the surge of bodies behind him, swallowed whole into the dark. With panic igniting in my chest, I turned to Mason, his expression mirroring my own confusion. "What cipher?" I breathed, knowing deep down that with every question, I was reopening doors I couldn't hope to close again. But just as before, answers eluded me, the answers I desperately needed. As we slipped into the cold night air, our breaths visible, mingling into the chaos that surrounded us. It felt as if everything was about to spiral beyond control, and yet, I was no longer just holding on to fear. Something inside began to shift. I could feel the weight of my legacy pressing down on me, and though dread filled my bones, I also sensed an exhilarating thrill, the promise of discovering who I truly was, of embracing what had lain dormant within me. But it all came crashing down the moment I caught a glimpse of the intruders, now free from the confines of the house, chasing after us with manic fervor. My heart pounded painfully in my chest as I realized, this was just the beginning. We were tangled in a war I didn't fully understand, but the stakes had never been higher. I had to unravel my father's tangled secrets, before they unraveled me. And as we sprinted farther into the night, the chilling thought settled in my mind: I was indeed being hunted, and the making of my own destiny had only just begun. With the cool night air swirling around us, panic heightened as we bolted down the dimly lit street. The rhythmic pounding of my heart merged with the sounds of our hurried footsteps. Mason and David flanked me, their expressions a mixture of fear and determination, but I could tell they were grappling with their own uncertainties about where this night would lead us. The darkness felt alive, shifting around us like an entity with its own fierce intent. "What the hell was that back there?" David shouted, glancing behind us as if the shadows would manifest into something tangible at any moment. Mason's face was set in a grim line. "We can't stop now," he urged, pulling us both forward. "We need to find somewhere safe." I stumbled moments later, the reality of my choice hitting me with full force. "Did you see him, Mason? That Manthe called me by my name. It's like they knew me." My voice trembled as I tried to process the connection that was almost tangible between us, a thread weaving through the chaos. Mason halted, turning to face me, panic reflected in his wide eyes. "Lena, I know this is overwhelming, but we can't dwell on it right now. We need to get to the old warehouse. It might be hidden enough. Just focus on surviving." His words were laced with urgency, but a flicker of hope emerged as I saw that familiar determination in his gaze. "Do you really believe we'll be safe there?" I asked, uncertainty clawing at my insides. But as I scanned the streets, the echoing footfalls of the intruders gave chase. The very air buzzed with the energy of something profound and frightening. As we sprinted toward the warehouse, memories flooded, in each one a piece of the puzzle my father had left behind, a cipher of sorts, spiraling around my consciousness like shards of glass. If I was to unravel the truth of my legacy, I needed to tap into that forgotten part of myself. Eventually, we reached the edge of the town, where the crumbling structure of the old warehouse loomed against the star-speckled sky like a silent sentinel. My heart sank when I spotted the "No Trespassing" sign hanging from a rusty chain on the door. It screamed the risks we were about to take, yet it also reflected the urgency that lured me in. Mason pushed the door open, wincing as it creaked loudly, and I followed him inside, David closing the door behind us. The darkness enveloped us, but we moved cautiously through the debris, the remnants of a time lost, where secrets lay within the shadowy corners, begging to be uncovered. "Are there any lights?" I whispered, scanning the room. The stench of mold hung heavy in the air, but within it was a hint of something metallic, ancient perhaps. "Only the flashlight in my bag," David replied, rapidly digging in the dim glow. "Well, make do with it." He produced a small beam of light that sliced through the darkness, illuminating remnants of forgotten machinery and weathered crates. Suddenly, the haunting melody whispered back to me, intertwining with the lines my father had etched in my memory. "Unlock. Cipher. Truth." They echoed like a mantra, settling within my core. "David, do you remember anything about the old stories, the history of our family?" I asked, feeling the urgency bubble as past and present began to collide. He paused, brows furrowing as if pulling strands together between us. "They told us tales of our ancestors being protectors, keepers of knowledge that held power. But I didn't believe it." "Maybe it's time to start believing," Mason interjected, his voice steady, pulling me back into the present moment. "If that man mentioned a cipher, there's something we need to discover here." Together, we moved cautiously deeper inside the warehouse, my pulse racing with every step. Shadows flickered through the beams of the flashlight, wrapping around us like twisted arms. David's voice dropped to a whisper. "Look over there." He pointed to a series of old, dusty crates, their labels worn almost entirely away. As we approached, I felt a spark of recognition. It was one of my father's first ventures. "Help me open it," I urged, laying my hands on the crate that bore our family crest, only partially visible in the dim light. It felt laden with memories I had tried to bury, yet here I was awakening traditions that had long lay dormant. With our combined strength, we pried the lid open, and inside lay an array of documents, dusty and yellowed with age. As I rummaged through them, drawings and notes spilled out, a strange combination of codes and symbols I was beginning to recognize. Mason scanned the notes, his eyes widening. These look like formulas. Could they be some sort of method? My heart raced as an old photograph caught my eye. I lifted it gingerly, revealing a gathering of familiar faces, my father, beaming, alongside others who seemed equally engrossed in something profound. One of them was the man who had chased User. At least, his unmistakable resemblance confirmed it. What were these people? I stammered, clutching the photograph tightly, feeling a deeper connection surging within me. But then, a loud noise erupted outside, the creaking of the warehouse door being rattled, urgency flooding my veins. "They're coming!" I hissed, panic ascending to a new level. In that frenzied moment, something shifted inside me, as if the weight of my father's legacy propelled forward, igniting a fire. I need to understand this cipher. Their hunt, maybe it's more than my inheritance. It could be a way to protect ourselves, but just then, the flashlight flickered ominously, leaving us once again cloaked in darkness and uncertainty. The tension mounted, pressing in around us, an emotional cliffhanger that resonated deep within. I could feel it was all about to unspool, and the ramifications would shape everything I thought I knew. As I turned back to Mason and David, hope wrestled violently with fear in my heart. "I won't let them rewrite my story," I declared fiercely. "We'll find a way through this together." But the moment stretched into breaths as the door splintered with force, the shadowy figures poised to enter, and uncertainty washed over me. Somewhere in the abyss of shadows, perhaps lay the answers I sought, an intertwining of courage, danger, and the legacy I never thought would awaken the hunt for me. The door splintered and buckled under the pressure of a force I couldn't fully comprehend. My heart pounded in my chest, loud enough to drown out the frantic whispers of my own mind clawing for clarity. Shadows danced on the walls like phantoms, sinister shapes waiting to gather us into their fold. I glanced at Mason and David, their expressions a mirror to my own mixture of resolve and dread. We have to hide. David's voice sliced through the thickening anxiety, his eyes darting for an escape route. The beam of the flashlight wobbled in his trembling hand as he swung it around, searching for a place to conceal ourselves. "Over there." Mason pointed toward a narrow opening between two towering stacks of crates. It was a tight fit, but it promised cover. We scrambled toward it, aware that each hurried movement could betray us, each quiet sound rippling ominously across the silence that loomed just outside. As we squeezed into the sundry of wood and dust, I could hear the muffled chaos outside, the intruders cursing under their breaths, hunting for us with an urgency born from desperation. The weight of the photograph resting in my grip felt like a tether to my past, a urgent reminder of what was at stake. Could these men chasing us possibly share my blood? Or was the connection deeper than even I could fathom? "We need a plan," Mason whispered, his breath heavy against the stillness of our hiding place. "What's in that crate might be the key. If we can decipher those notes, they might reveal something they want, but we don't have time." David hissed, brushing his fingers nervously against his own arm. "They'll find us any second. We need to get out of here, we can't let them." Mason's eyes locked onto mine, a fierce light igniting within. "Whatever secret your father left behind, it's what they're after. If we can just hold them off long enough, just long enough to get some answers." "We have to believe that." His words reverberated through me, filling the cracks of fear that had begun to settle too heavily in my bones. This was more than just my father's legacy, it was our chance at survival, at understanding who we were in the midst of this chaos. I glanced at the crate, now just a few feet away, sensing the length of history woven tightly into its seams, but another screeching crack as the door buckled again pulled me sharply back into the present. "We need to split up," I suddenly heard myself say, each syllable feeling both brave and reckless. "No way," David protested. "If they find you'll be fine," I interrupted, my voice steady. "Well, regroup by the back of the warehouse. You both take the front and create a distraction. I'll grab the crate and any notes I can find." Mason's brow furrowed with uncertainty, but I could see the shared weight of our collective fear pressing his decision. "Lena, please trust me," I insisted, the urgency echoing in my voice. "This is our chance. If I can understand the cipher, we might leverage whatever power it holds. I can't just run away from this." Time seemed to pause in that small space between fear and trust. Finally, Mason nodded, recognition dawning in his eyes. "All right, but we'll be right behind you. Just make sure you don't take too long." With one last shared look, I felt the chill of destiny settle in my core. We quietly crawled out of our hiding place, my heart racing as a rush of adrenaline sent a jolt through my veins. "We're moving," Mason whispered sharply, guiding David toward the door. I held my breath, wishing them strength as they exited into the uncertainty. As I made my way toward the crate, the outlines of shadows loomed heavily in the warehouse, creeping toward the last refuge of my father's secrets. I reached the crate, heart pounding in rhythm with the not-so-distant footsteps echoing beyond the threshold. Each movement was calculated. My fingertips brushed over the remnants of the documents again, feeling the electrical charge of a past that demanded to be unearthed. I rifled through them, desperate to find clarity among the jumble of codes and maps. My breath caught as my eyes landed on one drawing that depicted a striking symbol, an intricate representation of a labyrinth encased by vines that bore a chilling resemblance to the mark tattooed on my wrist. Realization bloomed within me, a terrifying thought threading through the chaos. This symbol was more than just my legacy, it was also a warning. But just as I began piecing together its meaning, the frantic sound of footsteps halted at the doorway. I quickly ducked behind a structure, heart racing and blood pounding in my ears. The voices grew nearer, their discussions filled with a mix of impatience and anger, recognizable enough to send a chill spiraling down my spine. "We need to find her now," a voice roared, slicing through the stagnant air. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized Itone of the men who had threatened me before. His voice was like ice, truth as cold as the night. Pressure mounted in my chest, and I realized that the very secrets my father had left behind might not just hold power, but the key to my very survival. The drawings in front of me blended into hazy images that began to spin in my mind, whispering of hidden meanings and life-altering choices, but just as I gathered my courage to decipher them, reality drained from my world as the door swung wide. A flash of light pierced through the darkness, revealing a shadow that looked strikingly familiar. "Lena." A voice I'd never thought I'd hear called out, that certainty shaking my foundation. I felt time freeze, dread coiling tightly around me as my heart threatened to break free of its confines. It was him, the man who had called my name, who knew things about me that had been hidden for far too long. Right there, within the echoing darkness of that warehouse, the curtain lifted on a greater truth, and with it, my very place in this tangled web of mystery. "Lena, come with me if you want to know everything," he beckoned, holding out a hand that gleamed just beyond the reach of light. And beneath the surface of shock and tangled threads of my past, I felt a new wave of wariness and a terrifying prospect. What lay beyond this moment could alter the course of everything I had ever known. As I stood frozen in the shadows of the warehouse, that single hand extended toward me like a lifeline or a noose. My heart hammered in my chest, each thud punctuated by the tempest of emotions swirling within. Should I trust him? Something deep inside knew this was it, the pivotal moment where my father's legacy teetered precariously on the edge. The choice I was about to make could either lead me to the truth or drag me deeper into the darkness that had haunted my family for generations. "Lena," he urged again, voice smooth yet urgent. "You have to understand, time is running out. You are the key to everything." His words struck a chord somewhere deep within me, and I could no longer deny the thread tying my desires together. Answers. I needed to pull the tangled threads of my past into coherence, to convert them into something meaningful before they unraveled completely. But as I took a cautious step forward, I glanced back toward the doorway. I could still hear the heated voices of the intruders crashing against the stillness, masking any semblance of safety beyond that threshold. My friends were out there battling their own fears, David, Mason fighting for my safety. I couldn't abandon them, but I was tired of living in the shadows of secrets. The dread hanging over me was palpable, a suffocating fog that whispered of danger. "Wait," I pleaded, my voice trembling. "What if I go with you?" "What about my friends? They're safe for now," he replied, though a hint of reluctance crossed his face. "But the moment we don't keep moving, that will change. Desperation unfurled inside me as I shifted my gaze between him and the doorway, weighing the risks. If you know so much, then tell me, what do you want from me? What does my father's legacy have to do with me? He wanted you to understand without the weight of fear, he said, his tone softening. There's power within you, power that connects you to the very essence of who he was. Trust me, Lena, and you can reclaim that legacy as your own. I felt as though I were teetering on the edge of a chasm, and swirling emotions battled within me, fear, hope, betrayal, and a flicker of something rising determination. My father had lived in the shadows, avoiding a fate that had come roaring back with cruel intent, and now it threatened not just him, but me and everyone I loved. But was I willing to face it head-on? Could I truly step into the light had kept hidden for so long? Time is not on your side, he pressed urgently, and in his eyes, I saw a glimmer of sincerity, a flash of the urgency that fueled him. If you don't come with me now, you risk losing everything. With my heart hammering in my chest, I took another step forward, emboldened. Then let's go. His expression brightened a fraction as he stepped back, signaling for me to follow. But before I could move, the world erupted behind me, the door crashing inwards, a wave of panicked shadows surging into the remnants of that space. David and Mason stumbled in, fighting against the tide of men eager to reach me. Lena. Mason's shout cut through the chaos, and I felt the rush of panic claw at my throat, the pulse of urgency igniting my instincts. I couldn't let them take me, couldn't allow my fate to be decided by secrets lurking in the shadows. I hesitated for that one moment, splitting the distance between the two paths laid before me. Go. Well, hold them off. Trust us. David yelled, his voice heavy with desperation and a fierce determination to protect me. My heart twisted painfully, torn between the instinct to run toward those who cared for me and the beckoning pull of that man's promise. But there was little to me. A choice had to be made. I could feel the weight of it crushing me, as though every breath pulled me further into a tangled web of chaos and uncertainty. Lena. The man's urgency surged through my racing thoughts. Come with me. In that moment, an unfamiliar clarity washed over me. I had always been defined by my family's legacy, but the hope that blossomed within me whispered of something new, my own path, my own identity. It was time to embrace it. With renewed courage, I turned away from Mason and David, taking the man's hand. I felt the warmth of his grip wrap around me like a lifeline, tugging me toward an unknown future, and behind us, the chaos erupted. I would not suffocate in shadows, I would forge my own path illuminated by conflict and truth. As we rushed from the warehouse, the night air swallowed us whole, a reminder that the road ahead might be fierce and unforgiving, but this time, I was ready to confront what lay waiting in the dark. With every heartbeat, I began to reclaim the power that surged within me, power of understanding, of courage, and of light. The man looked back at me, a spark of determination in his deep-set eyes. Together we will unravel your father's secrets and write your own story, he said, exuding a quiet intensity that seemed to pulse around us, and in that moment, the last vestiges of fear faded. I felt a heady rush of purpose as I stepped forward into the night, ready to embrace the truths I had yet to uncover. Beneath the shimmering canopy of stars, I whispered a silent promise to myself. I would confront the shadows chasing us and emerge stronger, a warrior forged in the crucible of truth. If the blood of my father ran through my veins, then I would no longer hide in the silence. I would unlock the cipher of my past and reclaim my destiny. As we sprinted into the unknown, one thought pierced through the silence: in the pursuit of truth, there is always light to be found.